who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom, the power and the glory, now and forever. Amen. So we're going to sing Amazing Grace now. We've got some beautiful musicians here. Emma and Michael are doing a great job. And then straight after that, we're going to have 1 minute silence for the unborn, just to remember the approximately 90,000 babies that are aborted in Australia each year. We just want to remember their little lives and just honour their lives with a minute silence. So thank you. Please sing along.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils and snares, we have already come. Towards grace I brought us safe thus far, and grace will lead us home. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see.
Thank you, Emma and Michael and everyone. So since we last gathered last year in September before the euthanasia vote, euthanasia has passed. The laws, it is now legal for euthanasia and assisted suicide in Queensland, which I'm sure you'll agree is an absolute travesty. But thank you. We did put up a formidable fight, and this fight is not going away. We're going to stick with it, and we're going to make sure that the elderly and sick and vulnerable have good protections at the end of life, and so they don't feel pressured in any way into euthanasia and assisted suicide. And we've also unfortunately had no success getting the Babies Born Alive bill to go for a vote in federal parliament, despite trying and writing to the Prime Minister and Mr Christensen writing an excellent bill. So that is a disappointment, but once again, we're not going to give up. We're hoping somehow miraculously in next term of government we can somehow get that bill to go for a vote so babies born alive in abortion do get medical care. Given that it is an election in just 3 weeks, a federal election, we will be addressing that in a number of our speeches from a pro-life perspective. And there are a few things I would just like to say as a preliminary thing to our wonderful politicians who are going to speak, as well as Martin Iles. Sometimes people say, well, abortion or euthanasia is not really a federal issue. Well, yes and no. Abortion is administered at the state and territory level in that it's the jurisdiction. It comes under the jurisdiction of the state and territory. However, there is a lot that can be done at the federal level. For example, there is a Medicare rebate for abortion. Now, Medicare is at the federal level. And I know Senator Canavan has a bill. He wants to present a bill to the House that would prohibit the Medicare rebate for abortion for sex-selective reasons, meaning if someone had an abortion because it was a boy and they wanted a girl or vice versa, that would be prohibited, them getting a Medicare rebate. It's the beginning of winding back that atrocity. So that is something we can get done potentially with the right government. Another thing is Australia gives foreign aid funding specifically for abortions, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that's just not on, and that is something we need to go after federally, as well as George Christensen's bill. Another thing that could be done is Medicare. Well, really, there shouldn't be any Medicare rebate for abortion, so that's the ultimate goal, to stop that and then to stop abortion altogether. Well, that is the ultimate goal. But they could stipulate that the reason for the woman's abortion has to be collected. There has to be very good data collection, and from there we can begin to implement much better policy. So I would say to you clearly that abortion is a federal election issue, and there's something else very important. Federal Labor has part of their policy platform to increase the number of quote-unquote free abortions at public hospitals, which means you and I will be paying for someone to have an abortion, potentially a full-term abortion or a late-term abortion for any reason at the local hospital here in Brisbane, which is just not on, I'm sure you'll agree. That's a Labor policy platform. So the way to get a good pro-life outcome this election, well, the best possible, is obviously to get to know your candidates, know where they sit on the issue of life. We have produced a Senate voting guide. Hello, Marshals, can you wave that if you have it? How to vote in the Senate. We can distribute it later, as well as the House of Reps. But the best thing for life is to always put Greens last and Labor second last. And I'm sure you all know that, but that's what we need to do. And if every single Christian around Australia did that, we simply, abortion wouldn't be an issue. It just wouldn't happen. There would be no federal funding, there'd be no laws of abortion up to birth. We need to start voting en bloc, Greens last, Labor second last, or Labor last and Greens second last. So, all right. We have, okay, some happy news. Martin Iles, do you want to come onto the stage? So Martin Iles is, of course, the Managing Director for the Australian Christian Lobby. He's doing excellent work for life and for truth in the public space. He's a household name, and the media fear him, I'm sure. God bless you, Martin. There you go. All the best.
Well, thank you, Tisha, and thank you, everybody, for being here this afternoon. It's encouraging to see a good gathering here in Brisbane. I know that we all agree with each other. I know that I had you at hello. I don't have to convince you. I don't have to educate you. So I'm not going to do that today. What I'm going to do is, I hope, encourage you. There's actually a verse from the Bible that encourages me in this matter, and I brought it to the Adelaide Walk for Life a little bit earlier in the year, and it's Galatians 6:9. It says, "Do not grow weary in doing good, for we will reap a harvest in due time if we do not give up." Let me show you how that might play out. In 1973, on the 22nd of January, the US Supreme Court handed down the decision of Roe versus Wade, which effectively legalised abortion to birth across the entire nation. In the week following, about 30 people, just 30, met to plan a response. By the 22nd of January 1974, the first anniversary of Roe versus Wade, some 20,000 people marched for life in Washington, D.C. By 1998, that number had expanded to 250,000. That is now the largest annual human rights demonstration anywhere in the world. Do you know, there was just a spark that was lit with those 30 people following the decision. And that flame is now burning across America and indeed the world, and it's changing things. And let me show you that that is true. In 2021, 108 restrictions on abortion were enacted across the US in 19 different states. 108. There's been no year like that since 1974. One of those restrictions was the heartbeat bill, which was signed into law by Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. And what it says is that before an abortion can be performed, the physician has to scan for a heartbeat. And if a heartbeat is found, then the abortion cannot proceed. That effectively bans abortion beyond 6 weeks. Abortions in Texas have dropped by 60% already. 2 states, Oklahoma and Idaho, have followed suit so far this year in 2022 with similarly restrictive laws. Repeated challenges to that law have been knocked back by the Supreme Court. And speaking of the Supreme Court in the US, they're currently considering the case of Dodds versus Jackson. And that case, many analysts believe, will either significantly roll back or it will overturn Roe versus Wade at last. 30 people, 1973, just a spark. And you say, well, hang on, is that spark, is that flame, is it burning in Australia today? And I think it is, and I'll tell you why. Really, our downward spiral began in earnest, let's say in 2008, in the state of Victoria, when then Health Minister, wait for it, Daniel Andrews, enacted abortion to birth laws in that state. And we know all about him, of course. Now, those laws, yes, there were people who stood for truth, but those laws passed through relatively easily. And then in 2013, Tasmania followed suit. And then in 2017, the Australian Capital Territory followed suit. And then in 2018, Queensland followed suit. But this time, there was just a little bit more resistance. This time, they had to go back to the drawing board. The bill failed at first, and they had to come back into the Parliament, try again. And I note, the architect of that bill is no longer in the Queensland Parliament. There was more resistance all of a sudden, 2018. 2019, New South Wales decided to have a go, and even more resistance came up in New South Wales. I was at the protests in New South Wales. They were massive. I've never seen the like of it for our sorts of issues. It nearly tore the government apart with people threatening to go onto the crossbench. The bill didn't actually pass until it had been given some amendments. So there was more resistance. And then 2021 was South Australia's turn. And this time the outpouring of concern was so significant and so strong, that bill didn't pass until it had the most comprehensive suite of amendments added to it that we've seen in any of these cases across the country, including several good ones, among which was an amendment that said that if a baby is born alive, it must be rendered medical care. And we should applaud, because that will save several lives a year in Australia. This issue became an election issue, therefore, in South Australia, because the whole mood was that the government had been too progressive and enacted too many progressive policies, like abortion to birth. They were too left-wing, and so they lost the election. And I will add this. The woman who pursued that bill, the Attorney General, she is no longer in Parliament. Yes, it's slow. Things worth doing usually are, but it's real, it's progress. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Notice that the verse contains a condition and it contains a promise. You say, what's the condition? Well, I'm going to quote Winston Churchill. Never, ever, 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 ever give up. And I want to say to you all here today, thank you for not giving up. You're here. That's the condition. And it contains a promise. And the promise, I want it to put a spring in our step today. We hear, oh, don't grow weary of doing good, and oh, the shoulders sag, oh, yeah, I am a bit weary. No, it's something that should put a spring in your step. It should put joy in your heart, because by this statement, God has established a rule. And the rule is, doing good yields good. That's the rule. I've already showed you that this plays out in the political sphere. But a lot of you are mostly in a social sphere. We all have a social circle. We all have social interaction. And I want to tell you that the good you do in the social sphere is also good that yields good. There's people here who are pregnancy support counsellors. There's people here who are post-abortion grief counsellors. There are foster parents here. There are adoptive parents here. There are single mothers who have gone on against the odds here. There's single fathers who have gone on against the odds here. There are mothers and fathers who commit everything to their family here, because they know it's right and they are faithful to that calling. I want to tell you, you are living the pro-life life. And we are people who walk the talk. And I want you to know, and I want you to be encouraged, that it was a crowd like this that Jesus would have said to, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. And in your testimony and in your witness, good things are done. And so the social sphere of our lives is a place where the good you do definitely, absolutely yields good. One more thing. I've talked about the political, I've talked about the social, but there's another aspect to this issue. And I want to put it like this. What is it that makes human life unique? Now, I did a lecture recently on what it means to be made in the image of God, and I think that's where it starts. God didn't speak that way about any other kind of life, that it was made in his image. And you say, what does that mean? A few things, but it definitely means this. It means that here is a kind of life that is made to know God. That is the reason God made human life. He made it to befriend it forever. Do you know something? That is why he made my life. That is why he made your life. That is why he knitted it together in a mother's womb with tender care, as the psalmist says. And of course, what this means is that this is not just a political thing. It's not just a social thing. It's something more, because Jesus said this is eternal life, to know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. In other words, it has an eternal dimension. And the eternal dimension to this issue, let me tell you this morning and encourage you, this afternoon and encourage you, it changes everything. It means the person who has lost a child has great hope. Because in that eternal dimension, you know that you will meet that child again. It means the person who has participated in abortion, whether he or she, it means two things for them. It means, first of all, that there's an answer to the guilt. And one of the greatest tragedies, and nobody ever says this, is that so many people who are in the pro-choice advocacy space are there because they are gnawed out on the inside by guilt, and it burdens them. And they think that more abortions will solve their guilt. It won't solve their guilt. The only solution is when you know Christ and you know that in him is forgiveness, because he died under the weight of guilt and it can be done away with. Not only that, but even that person will meet that little soul once again in the future, where, thanks to Jesus, all will be well. Do you know, it means another thing. It means that for all of us here today, every single one of us, it means that we're here trying to raise the voices of those who this life doesn't listen to. But you know, I believe absolutely that in the next life, there is a mighty throng of preborn souls, human beings, who are waiting there. And you know, I like to think, maybe it's fanciful, maybe not, but it's as if they're all standing with Jesus when we get there, and he says to us, as we trust he does, well done, good and faithful servant. Let me ask a question to close. What if this harvest of good of which I've been talking, what if it is not reaped until the next life. What if we did all of this and politically nothing seemed to happen? And what if socially we felt like we achieved nothing? And the only confidence we really had was that in the eternal, there is fruit, there is a reward, there is something worth pursuing. I want to say this, if that's all there was, would it still be worth it? You answer, I hope you would say that. You answered the question for me. Of course, you bet your bottom dollar. It's the main reason why it's worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, eternity changes everything. And I just want to encourage you, as I said I would at the start, it's worth it politically, I believe that. It's worth it socially, I believe that. But praise the living God, I know this, it is definitely worth it eternally. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That was excellent. Next, I'm going to invite Senator Amanda Stoker to the stage. Senator Stoker is Queensland's most senior minister. She is the Assistant Minister for Women. She's also the Assistant Attorney General, and this is in her first term of being a senator. So she is a rising star. She is a member of the Liberal National Party, and she's up for election again. Her candidacy is up for election. She's number 3 on the Liberal National voting ticket. I would encourage you to vote below the line this election. If you're not going to vote, it's up to you how you vote. Please just put Labor and Greens last. But if you're not going to vote LNP, and we're definitely not telling you to vote LNP, we think you should vote pro-life, however that is for your electorate, please consider voting below the line so we can try to make sure Stoker retains her spot in the Senate. We love you, Amanda Stoker. Thank you for everything you do. God bless.
Thank you, Tish, and right back at you. Thank you for everything that you do, Tish. She's a pretty great leader for a pretty important cause, isn't she? Well done, Tishan. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today. Today, we gather, as we do about every year, to stand for something that's really important. We take time to honour the lives of all human beings, from all walks of life, whatever age they are and in whatever circumstances they are. And that is a deeply compassionate thing to do. It says to the woman who finds herself unexpectedly or inconveniently pregnant that we love you and we will support you and we care about you and that we want to honour your child's life and yours. It says to the couple that learns that the child they are expecting is likely to have a disability, that your child is perfect and that we will provide you with the help that you need to help their gift shine. It says to the couple who have been told that they cannot conceive, that we understand your yearning for a family and we will support policies that make adoption much more possible than it is right now. It says to older Australians that you are valued and that we will strive to protect you from the elder abuse that we know is so often the corollary of ready access to euthanasia. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. It's a big thing to do, for showing the courage to display your beliefs, not to push them on others as we are so often accused of doing, but rather to extend the hand of support and of kindness and of generosity to people who find themselves in situations of great fear about their ability to cope with the circumstances that they find themselves in. For the measure of a society, and I believe this so deeply, the measure of a society is how it treats people who cannot speak for themselves. Isn't that right? And so we need to speak for the elderly and for the sick, for people with disabilities, and we need to speak for the unborn, the most voiceless of all. It is madness, really, that we spend and invest so many years into our best and our brightest to help them become doctors so that they might heal. And then we ask them to end life. It's bizarre, really. And it is just plain wrong that our society seems more ready to condemn cruelty against a dog or a cat than it is prepared to do so against a human child, even one old enough to be capable of life outside of the womb. One who, if unwanted, would have many families who would happily welcome him or her to be supported and loved throughout their lives. On moments like today, we really do challenge our society to ask what I think is a really important question. What kind of a society do you want to be? Because to me the answer is easy. I want every child to know that they matter, whether they are planned or unplanned, whether they are convenient or whether they are not, whether they are with or without a disability. You all matter. You all have incredible gifts to offer our world, and it should be our honour to walk beside you, supporting and encouraging you as you discover and reveal what your unique contribution to this world will be. That's our privilege as humans. And I want every child to know that they are more than just a clump of cells. You know, at just 12 weeks, with your beating heart and all of your key organs, with your 10 little fingers and your 10 little toes, you are a human and you deserve to reach your potential. I say this, that we must do so without a shred of judgment, with nothing but kindness and open hearts, that we must wrap our arms around every woman facing difficulty and either help her to grow the confidence needed to adapt to the unexpected, knowing that she will be helped, or alternatively help to facilitate adoption to a family who is ready and willing to take on that task. That's not an act of judgment. That must always be an act of love. It really does baffle me that there are some people who have questioned whether it is appropriate for a person like me to serve as Assistant Minister for Women because I am pro-life. They suggest that there is some sort of a conflict between those two roles. But in my mind, there is absolutely no conflict possible between supporting women and supporting the most vulnerable people in our community. There is no conflict. And when I think about standing for the unborn, we shouldn't forget that half of those are little girls. I know there are many women who find themselves in incredibly difficult situations, but we should be providing care and support to those women so that they know that terminating their pregnancy isn't their only option. I want women facing difficulty to have a real choice. That's being pro-choice. The choice not to be shoehorned into an abortion of a healthy child because she feels ashamed or embarrassed to be pregnant in an unplanned way. I want women not to face coercion from a partner into an abortion as part of what we know is a form of domestic violence. And I want those women not to feel like their life is over just because it hasn't gone to plan. I strongly believe that the little boys and little girls whose lives lie in the balance deserve to be heard and deserve to be respected. And I can't thank you enough for the respect you show to each and every one of them by being here today. So Yeah, that does deserve a clap, doesn't it? So, what do we need to do to build a culture that supports life in this beautiful country? Because surely that's part of the answer. You know, a friend of mine told me what I thought was a really interesting fact. Most teenage boys, throughout their teenage years, never have the experience of holding a young baby. And when they do, they respond in the most interesting way. If they're supported to hold a newborn baby, or even a weighted doll that feels lifelike, they respond in the most caring and protective way, cradling that little baby to their chest and bonding in a way that is so very primal. And by giving young people more of a chance to interact with and be responsible for babies, they can come to understand as they grow up that the opportunity that is pregnancy is one to be respected and valued. And when we educate young people to interact with and serve and support, for instance, older people with dementia, we show them that even throughout this difficult illness, beneath there is a feeling, hearing human who is still capable of great love and great joy. Perhaps providing those experiences now will make those very same young people respond quite differently to caring for the loved ones in their family as they age. These are all programs that are going on now. It is stories like these that fill me with a great optimism for what's ahead. Hope that it will be the coming generation that seizes the privilege of life with both hands. Belief that with every passing year, the number of babies terminated in Queensland will fall, and that our vulnerable will be valued and will be heard and will be supported to achieve their incredible potential. That our women will be safe and that they will be granted real choice, even in the most difficult adversity. You know, we really can do this. We can do it by extending love and kindness to all in our community, whatever their walk of life and whatever circumstances they find themselves in. And you take an important step towards that by being here today. Thank you so, so very much for being a part of this movement for change. Thank you very much, everyone, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Senator Stoker. Wasn't that wonderful? We have another senator now, Senator Malcolm Roberts for One Nation Party. If you want to come to the stage. Now, Senator Roberts, who's seen One Nation's Right to Life policy? It's outstanding. It's the best pro-life policy of any sitting party. And Senator Malcolm Roberts was instrumental in this. So we deserve a real debt of thanks to Senator. So let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tishan. Can you hear me down the back? And thank you to the organisers, and especially Cherish Life. We appreciate what you do. And thank you, everyone, for being here. What a wonderful turnout. I want to acknowledge all the speakers here today. I also want to acknowledge my wife, Christine. This is her first pro-life rally. And after the last 2 years, she will be well and truly with us. She knows what's going on in the bigger picture. I want to also appreciate Raj. I can't see Raj. There he is, number 2 Senate candidate with Pauline Hanson. I especially want to acknowledge George Christensen. Where are you, George? Thank you. George has done enormous work and he believes in what he's doing. And we are so pleased to have him join our party because, as he said publicly, he feels an alignment with his values and One Nation's policies. Abortion, or even being pro-life, is a difficult issue because of the complexities. Yet when we strip it all back to its basics, it's really simple, isn't it? It's about life, human life, and about God. That's it fundamentally. So I'm going to read out our policy, because as Tishan said, we've had Tishan's input into developing this. She called me up some years ago. We got together, and then we handed her to Pauline Hanson's Chief of Staff, and they came up with it, and it is wonderful. Our political opponents have said it's the best abortion policy in the country. It can say more than I can, so let me just read it to you. Pauline Hanson's One Nation acknowledges the scientific fact that a human being's life begins in the womb. We were horrified when state governments passed legislation which legalised abortion up until birth for any reason. This law is one of the most extreme in the Western world. One Nation will seek every opportunity to roll back brutal and extreme abortion law so that both unborn babies and pregnant women will have a high level of legal and medical protection once again. Specifically, One Nation will reduce the gestational limit for abortions. Current legislation in some states allows the abortion of an unborn child up until the day of birth. One Nation will ban sex-selective abortion. Sex-selective abortion is the practice of terminating a pregnancy based upon the predicted sex of a child. The selective abortion of female fetuses is most common where male children are valued over females. Don't say that to my party leader, please. One Nation will implement counselling and other safeguards. Women who may be considering an abortion must be provided counselling and compassionate assistance, support. One Nation will medical care for babies born alive during an abortion. That is inhuman at the moment, that babies born alive during an abortion are just left to die. How can anyone think of doing that? We will provide medical care for babies born alive during an abortion. Neonatal care must be provided to babies born alive during an abortion, as would be given to any other child born at the same stage of pregnancy and in the same medical condition. One Nation will support anaesthetised abortion. Current procedures across our country, across Australia, only offer the mother anaesthetic when performing a surgical abortion. This tells us something about the minds of the people who passed this legislation in this state parliament. One Nation will restore doctors' rights, reinstitute a doctor's full right to a full conscientious objection to abortion. One Nation will ban organ harvesting, prevent the use of aborted baby organs. One Nation will mandate data reporting. As Tishan said, current legislation fails to report abortion rates in some states. That's the One Nation policy. So I'll get back now to some comments about the bigger picture, because Martin said it's slow. It is, but we are making progress. The bigger picture confronting us is the destruction of life, the destruction of Christian values, the destruction of our humanity. Abortion puts society on a slippery slope. The evidence is all around our society. Our society is sick. Our society is confused. Yet look at you all. Look at us all. Humans are wonderful. Abortion under certain circumstances became abortion up to 13 weeks. Then it became full term. Now some are calling for abortion in the 3 months after birth. That is murder. Where does the murder start? Once they're born? Just before birth? Yet the fetus is alive just before birth, isn't he or she? After 24 weeks, is that when life starts, when premature babies survive? The fetus is alive then. So when does life begin? When does the fetus gain life? Until someone proves to me otherwise, it's at conception. We are talking about life, about children, about humanity. Human life is always under pressure. We are all always under pressure. There is an anti-human agenda, and I am proudly, fiercely pro-human. Not just pro-life, pro-human. To be effective in protecting life and values, though, let's understand the bigger picture and then commit to protecting life, protecting children, protecting humanity. And I want to share a story of someone close to my wife and I. She and her husband, Christian family, had 4 loving kids. They got pregnant with their 5th. Wonderful. Well down the track, the baby or the fetus, it's the same thing, isn't it? Fetus was small. The doctor suggested terminating. No way to these two. That baby now is their fittest, healthiest, most active, energetic, intellectually competent human being that they have in their family, and a joy to be with. But consider this in our society. The bending of 2 genders, male and female. The reorienting of sexuality and reorienting of sexuality. The eroding of Australian values, Christian values, life. And it's deliberate. The eroding of religion and the main religion's codes of conduct. Declaring war on men and a subtle war on women, just as the previous speaker spoke. Women in sport. Polluting our human spirit and the sanctity of what it means to be human, as Martin Iles so eloquently said. Distorting anti-human school curriculum. And now they're talking about injecting infants with an experimental gene therapy treatment. This is confusing young children. It's dispiriting children. They're leaving children lost, rudderless, abandoned, and vulnerable in fear and guilt. They're dividing and separating adults and meshing people in unfounded fear and guilt, artificial conflict and trauma, and abandonment of purpose and life. Why? Because we're in a deliberate war against humanity, and we are fighting for humans. This is an anti-human movement, and this pro-choice movement is just one manifestation of it. This is a war with anti-human globalist predators using the United Nations and the World Economic Forum to control people. That's what it's about. To push us, all of us, into a continuous stream of inhuman, non-human entities, devoid of critical thinking, marooned in a sea of fear and guilt. The exact opposite of what Jesus taught us to do. They want us to be cogs in the globalist wheel. This transcends faith, transcends political parties, transcends societies, transcends nations. It's about our species. Now, 10 years ago, I would not have said these words, but I've done my research. I know what I'm talking about. My core point is that life is fundamental. Human life above all. We need to cherish life, and we need cherish life. And the values, we need to cherish the values that guide our life. We need to cherish freedom, because with freedom comes responsibility. With responsibility comes creativity and human progress. Life is primary, and freedom is essential for a full, conscious life. And yet, many, if not most politicians, have abandoned life. Many churches have abandoned life. Therefore, it's up to each of us to make changes to protect life and freedom. That requires changing Parliament. That requires changing who we send to Parliament. That requires changing how we vote. We want Mr. Christensen, George Christensen, back in Parliament. And we want him to go there with Raj Guruswamy. Like George, like Pauline, and like me, we all need, all of us, need to hold government accountable. In a democracy, that's through the ballot box. So cast our votes wisely. I mention the word deceit quite often in public life these days. That's the way our governments are running. And I can see many of you agreeing. The antidote is truth. That gives us hope and it returns our humanity. And I just want to finish with the key lesson that Jesus taught. Forgiveness. Yes, even for Dan Andrews. Forgiveness for everyone. Because until we forgive everyone, we don't forgive ourselves. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. That was wonderful. Thank you. Got this one. Yeah. Wonderful. So the next speaker is Senator Matt Canavan. Senator Matt, do you want to start coming up to the stage? Senator Matt is an exceptional pro-lifer. As I said earlier, he's going to present a bill, assuming he gets back in. He's also up for re-election. He's Liberal National Party number 2 on their ticket. He's going to present a bill to prohibit or ban Medicare rebate for sex-selective abortion. This is a massive step in the right direction. He's a registered member of Cherish Life. He is 100% pro-life. We love you, Matt. God bless you. Well, please welcome Senator Matt.
Thank you. I think I've got one. Thank you. Thank you very much, T. Shannon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out here today. I think, T. Shannon, you just do a terrific job. She's a wonderful lady. Give her a round of applause again. We're so lucky to have her. I don't know if you've been following politics much this week, but I've got, I've been in a bit of trouble. Got in a bit of trouble for saying what I think is right. And down there in down there in Canberra, saying what you think is right is a mortal sin. You know, you're put in the naughty corner for a little while. But I'm here today. I'm going to speak. I don't regret it. I'm going to keep speaking what I think is right. And the most important right is the right to life. It is the most important right. Absolutely. Because every other right depends on that right. Without the right to life, you don't have a right to free speech. You don't have the right to work. You don't even have the right to choose what medical procedures you do either. You don't even have that right. Remember pro-choice? Remember that? What happened to that? Well, we're here today to fight for that right. And I'm a little bit tired today. I was on a 2 a.m. flight out of Darwin this morning. I didn't sleep too much, and I had to get out my phone and flick through my Twitter feed to stay somewhat interested. By the way, how good is the new Twitter? How good is Twitter now? It's how good? I mean, I don't think I'd agree with Elon Musk on a lot of these sort of things, but I tell you what, I agree with free speech. I agree with that. And that's also a very important right. And it doesn't. There's so many people, so many of our opponents, really, they're very, very worried about free speech, aren't they? They don't want that. They don't like people being able to say what they think. But that's good now, we've got that. And I was scrolling through my Twitter feed and I follow an account that just posts quotes from St. Thomas Aquinas. And yes, he deserves an applause too, Thomas. The particular tweet that came up this morning was quite apt. It said, to kill the innocent is against the natural law. And that's absolutely right. And I don't think anybody could disagree with that, right? To kill the innocent is against the natural law. The only question then really is, are the unborn innocent? That's the question. Now, the innocent, the unborn, they haven't said anything racist. They haven't been transphobic. They haven't even refused to get the jab. They are the quintessential innocent human beings. And they deserve our protection. But we don't live in a society where they're often protected. It's not just our laws. My wife and I have a very good friend up in Yeppoon who's expecting at the moment. It's a blessing. And she and her husband are very happy. She called up the radiologist just this week to book in a scan. And the first question she got was, are you going to proceed with the pregnancy? The first question. And there's no law that does that. It's our culture. It's the society we live in. And I'm not up here to tell you I can change that. I can't do that as a politician. Anyone who says they can't individually. We need all of us to do that. And I want to give you some encouragement like Martin did, that we are winning. We are winning because, do you remember a bloke called Bill Shorten? Do you remember him? Yeah, some people have forgotten already. He would have been Prime Minister if it wasn't for a lot of us. Because it was Martin and a lot of Christians who rose up at the last election. He'd said some pretty derogatory things about people of faith, and Christians and other faith members got up and voted against the Labor Party in droves. And now the Labor Party, they're a little bit wary of Christians. They're a little bit scared of us. They don't say much about these things. Tishan's done an excellent job. I encourage everybody to get this pamphlet, which shows that under the National Labor Party platform, do you remember when Bill Shorten encouraged he was going to tie hospital funding to abortion services? Remember that? You don't hear them talk about that much anymore, do you? Because they're a bit worried about you. But in the National Party's platform, as Tishan has exposed, is that Albanese's Labor has a plan, and I quote, to expand abortion services provision in public system. That's their plan. So our job in the next few weeks is to keep the Labor Party on their toes. They're scared of Christians. They're scared of coal miners too. That's a separate rally. They're scared of you. They're scared of you. We've got to keep them there. We've got to keep them there. And the way to do that is to vote, I want to tell you a quick story, be very quick. A couple of months ago, we did have a life bill in the Parliament. We had this thing called mitochondrial donation, and I don't have time to go through the details, but effectively it's the first time we'll allow human gene therapy. And through that process, there is the destruction of embryos. And myself and Senator Amanda Stoker and other senators, we drafted an amendment to remove the destruction of embryos from this bill. And that, and along with other members, we lost by just a handful of votes. One amendment we lost by just 2 votes. Just 2 votes. And that's how important your vote is in a few weeks' time. That's how close it can be when these questions come up. I can't change our society, but I can change our laws if I have more people like me, like Amanda, like others here today in the Senate. And I would make the point that it was also James McGrath, he's up as well. He was on our side. He voted with us. And on Tishan's guide, every Liberal National Party senator is on this list that's up for election at this election. Everyone. So it doesn't matter if you vote above or below the line, the LNP is behind life. It is fighting for you. And I will keep doing that. And as Tishan said, my commitment is if I am re-elected, I will do a couple of things. I haven't been too happy with my mate George Christensen the last few weeks, but I will. If George is not there, if he's not there, I will pick up his bill and reintroduce that to the Parliament so we keep this Born Alive bill alive. It's a fantastic bill. And as Martin mentioned in South Australia, no one can argue against it. We've just got to get this to a vote. If we get it to a vote, hardly anyone will vote against this. They can't. They can't do that. We've just got to get it to a vote. And I will also pick up Senator John Madigan's bill and reintroduce that about sex selection for Medicare funding, as Tishan said. I'll do that too. I was about to do that late last year, and then I crossed the floor on vaccine mandates, and I'd probably cause enough trouble in that week, so I missed my opportunity. But we've got to get rid of those too. The third thing we've got to do is get rid of all the mandates, right, that are left. That's what also we've got to do. We've made that's another one we've made progress on. We have made progress, but there are still mandates around. They've got to go. They've got to go yesterday. But I just want to thank you all. As I say, we have got momentum. We have got them on the run. We have got them scared. So just keep fighting. Keep going we're doing what you're doing. Keep fighting for what is right. And we will get our due reward. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you, Senator Canavan. That was wonderful. So next up we have Mr. George Christensen. Do you want to start coming up, George? We all know George well. We love George as well. He's a retiring member for Dawson up in Mackay, and he is now running as a Senate candidate for One Nation Party, number 3 on their ticket. He's also the author of the Babies Born Alive bill. So, George, thank you for your great pro-life advocacy and all the best.
Thank you, Tish. And can you stay up here? Can we give this woman a round of applause, and through her, all the Cherish Life people? Well done to you and all you've done. A tremendous fight over the last few years in the state of Queensland. Unfortunately, as last speaker, you get up and just about everything you were going to say has been said, but it's worth repeating some of it. Matt Canavan is right. I mean, we've talked a lot about freedoms over these previous few years, the freedom from coercion to certain medical treatments, freedom of speech, other rights that people talk about all the time, but the greatest right is the right to life. The right to life is the greatest right. Without it, there are no other rights. Simply aren't. And, you know, it's worth reading, actually, given that we're all going to be voting very soon. And whose number one issue here is life? Hands up. Number one, right? Well, it's probably pretty important to actually know where parties stand. And the Labor Party, we don't need to guess, we've heard some of it, but the Labor Party, I want to read you verbatim what's in their national platform. It says that Labor recognises there are unique barriers to accessing sexual and reproductive health services, and particularly contraception and termination, as well as legal barriers in some states and territory. These include a lack of affordability and accessibility, poor service provision in many regional and rural areas, and issues of reproductive coercion. It says that Labor will work to improve sexual and reproductive health, that means abortion, for all Australians, and supports the rights of individuals to make decisions regarding their reproductive health, particularly the right to choose appropriate contraceptions and termination, or to continue with their pregnancy. Labor will ensure these choices are supported by access to relevant medical support and advice services. So that's all the gumph. Now here comes the real part. As part of this, Labor will support awareness of, access to and uptake of modern contraceptives, particularly long-acting reversible contraceptives. B, increase the availability of culturally sensitive and accessible sexual and reproductive health services. And C, here's the big one, work with states and territories to improve legal protections, such as safe access zones for women seeking termination services. Safe access zones. What that is another infringement on freedom, ladies and gentlemen. It stops people from protesting or counselling on the sidewalk, which just could save a life. Labor want to silence you. They want to silence you. They are that pro-abortion. Their policy goes on, as well as expand service provision in the public system. So with Labor, it is going to be wholesale abortion, from one end of the country to the other. They will push it, just like they've done in this place here, to the shame of that government that sits in that place. They will push it from one end of the country to the other with no right to even speak out against it. No right. That's what these safe zones are all about. Now, of course, I looked before I joined One Nation at their policy, and Malcolm's read that out, but they had me at the first part. It's good to read this again. One Nation acknowledges the scientific fact that a human being's life begins in the womb. They had me at that. They had me at that, ladies and gentlemen. But as has been said, I pushed in the last Parliament for something that's on, I think this one here, the Children Born Alive Protection Bill. And I'm very grateful to Senator Canavan for going to continue that on if I'm not there in the Parliament. But I wrote to numerous people in government about this, pushing it. And I got a response back from someone, and I'll read you a section of the letter. Access to pregnancy termination services in Australia is the responsibility of states and territories and subject to their respective legislation. They could have left it there, but they went on. This access is an important element of the reproductive and sexual health services the Commonwealth Government supports for Australian women, and we continue to work with states and territories on the availability of safe and legal abortion Australia-wide. It went on to say in this letter, we are committed to protecting and promoting the sexual and reproductive health and rights of women and girls. I am proud that Australia is globally recognised in this space. It is a core part of our foreign policy and aid program, and we advocate on these issues in international fora. I've got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that letter was written to me and signed by one Scott Morrison, Prime Minister of Australia. So I stopped being a my party man, right or wrong, obviously. And I got to tell you, in the coming election, if you have been wedded onto a party, I got to tell you also, I plead with you, this is not about the party I'm in now. I got to plead with you, stop being a party person, right or wrong. Look at the candidates running. Honestly, if there was a Labor candidate in my electorate that was pro-life and all the others were pro-choice, I'd vote Labor. That's how strong I'm on that topic. But we don't have Labor here. Who we have is Senator Malcolm Roberts. Who we have is Senator Matt Canavan. And who we have is Senator Amanda Stoker. And Amanda's pilloried by the left and all the feminazis because she's the Assistant Minister for Women, and that's not really the thing that women should be saying, apart from the fact that abortion affects women the most. It is a huge contributor in terms of mental health issues to women. And so remember these names, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I'm departing from the script, sorry, Malcolm, but I am going to be voting below the line when it comes to the Senate. And I'm going to be making sure that all of the pro-life candidates on that long white paper are down on my ballot. And I hope you do too. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, George. I think we should give him another round of applause. Thank you, George. Wow. Well, that concludes the speeches. We're just going to take about 10 minutes to take some photos and transition to the to the march. But I do just want to highlight the below the voting line for life voting guide. Marshals, if anyone hasn't got one and you want one, please put up your hand. It is important. Every single Senate candidate who's spoken today is here. Amanda Stoker, Matthew Canavan, George Christensen. We worked long and hard to choose the top 12 pro-life candidates. Please vote below the line this election. Pray about it, but that's our strong recommendation to achieve a pro-life outcome. That's in the Senate. And then on the back it has grading the different parties on the issue of abortion, euthanasia and babies born alive bill, and get to know the candidates in your seat as well. So, any professional photographers or media, you're welcome to come on the stage to get some good snaps. And can everyone put their signs up? The police are just going to close the roads for us. Up the back? That looks amazing. Tony Moore, do you want to come up? Would you like to come up? You're all welcome. All right, we'll practice some battle cries for the walk. Both lives matter. Pro-life. Pro-woman. Pro-baby. Pro-man. Pro-family. Pro-life. What's the number one voting issue this election? Life. Life, life. That looks amazing. Oh, there's one. Adoption, not abortion. Ready? Adoption, not abortion. Adoption, not abortion. Adoption, not abortion. Adoption, not abortion. I'll jump out the way. Very good. Can you keep them up for a little bit longer? And then when we want them down, let me know. Wendy, can you share some photos with me? Oh, thanks. And signs down for a minute. Do you want to sign down?
Yes, why don't you stand there?
Oh, that's okay.
I'd like to know.
Okay. Should never put your back to people. So.
Tell her to turn around.
All right. Thanks. I can't do it anymore. All right. So we're going to march up the street. The lead banner is Babies Born Alive banner. The marshals are going to circulate buckets if you feel to contribute to the cost of the rally. There is absolutely no pressure, but if you could contribute, that would help us cover our costs. And once again, I want to thank all the speakers for today. Senator Amanda Stoker, she's had to go. Senator Malcolm Roberts, Senator Matt Canavan and George Christensen. And please come and get some photos if you want some photos. And God bless you. Thanks for being here. The march is about 1.5 kilometres. We need to listen to both the police and the marshals at all time. It's a very fun march. There will be life battle cries. And just have fun. And God bless you. And, one more thing. We have a Put Labor Last flyer. Now, we are letterboxing these in some critical electorates, including the electorate of Longman, and we're looking for more volunteers in Longman and also Blair. So if you feel like volunteering for Longman or Blair, please see the tent. They just Put Labor Last, and it talks about Albanese's plan to make abortions free at our local public hospitals. So, yeah, thank you guys. Love you. God bless you.